We're getting there. We're getting there.
Christine out there is dealing
Trying to
with a 6 and
patrol.
a 4-year-old who aren't listening to her right now.
Gosh almighty, why are you not popping on?
Mine says you were recording.
Yeah, mine
Does it?
says you're recording,
Okay.
buddy. Yeah.
Mine doesn't. Mine says this. It's not. It's just spinning. So that's why I wasn't sure if it was actually doing it. Okay. It's just gray. All right. Now we got it. Okay. So here we go. Draft bust, disappointments. We got the draft coming up in a couple days. Thank goodness it gives us something to watch. I still can't understand how $1 billion industry. I've had to hear for like a month. How are they going to be able to do a virtual draft? And I'm like, dude, it's a virtual draft. I'm like, why is that so hard? And you could still have a couple of people at a house. You just can't have maybe the entire staff there. I don't know. They just made it sound way more difficult than I thought it would ever be. And I'm like, I'm sure they can find an IT guy. I mean, you would think. I mean,
their whole front office is Ivy League. So you tell me they can't figure that out?
Yeah, exactly. I didn't get it. But anyway. All right. So I'm just going to start with my list and you guys jump in wherever you want to. But I just looked at recent history and I thought, draft bust. Who has been a bust? So I started with Trent Richardson because I truly thought Trent Richardson was going to be a good player. I mean, I really did. There's no way I thought he'd ended up the way he ended up for the Browns. The quiet storm, Courtney Brown, is absolutely another one who totally blew me away because it was everything you would have thought. He had size, he had speed. How can you be a bust? And yet he was. William Green, just because that dude got busted at the Akron Canton Airport, walking around with a knife or whatever he had. That's fantastic. That shows you what we had there. Justin Gilbert, because how you could be that big of a bust, I truly don't know how you pick a guy who's that bad. But my number one guy is Brady Quinn, because when they traded up to get Brady Quinn, I thought Brady Quinn's going to be okay. I thought he'd at least be average. I didn't think he'd be a Hall of Famer, but I thought, okay, he'll be serviceable. And for that dude not even to be serviceable was surprising to me. But those were just mine because I just went on recent guys. But I didn't want to go back to Mike Junkin and people like that because that's
Charlton.
Yeah, that's too much. He's like Bigfoot. They're still looking for him. But yeah, draft disappointments to me in the NFL, it's so crazy because you would think you have so many guys to pick. And, those guys get to play. I mean, I know they may not start their freshman year, but, you got 3 years of film on some of those guys. They don't get to come out until after their third year. And you just think like, you would think you look at film and you'd be able to go, that guy's a football player, that guy isn't. That's why I'm really interested to see what happens Thursday, Friday, and Saturday with this draft, because not having guys work out in front of you, I just wonder how many busts there truly are going to be in this draft, or how many guys are going to hit on guys. And I think Mason, his dream job is either going to be a stats guy or to be a guy who would be a talent evaluator. So I'm curious to see who your big busts are. Who do you have?
Keith, of course, as a Browns fan, our lists are going to be similar. The one that I didn't put on that list, and here's the reason why I didn't put Trent Richardson on that list. Not that he wasn't a bust. It was because we traded him for a first-round draft pick. So there are other teams that thought that he was going to be good.
Yeah.
And what I like about him now, if you've looked at any of the, like you said, my dream job, any of the sports analytics would show you now that he was not going to be a success in the NFL. Of course, back then they didn't have those, or they weren't working with those numbers as much as they are now. But I didn't put him on there. My number one wasn't on your list, and it's Johnny Football. And here's my reason why: because I drank the Kool-Aid. That's the reason. I thought that he was going to bring something different to Cleveland that Whedon and Quinn and all these other picks that we thought were going to be good. I thought he was different. And the reason why I thought he was going to be different was because he had that chip, and we could say the same thing about Baker, but he played with a passion and aggression at A&M, and he beat Alabama, and he did all those things. So he was number one on my list. I mean, I remember the day that they drafted him, arguing with friends over and over and over again about him being the right guy. And So excited, and obviously that one didn't work out. Courtney Brown was second on my list, and again, I think it was because of expectations. Just like a Browns fan, you look at the drafts around all the times that they've had the number one pick. If we would have came back a year earlier, we would have had Peyton Manning. If we would have stuck around one more year, we would have had Ray and Jonathan Ogden. I mean, it just seems like none of those franchise quarterbacks were around when we were picking first every year. But Courtney Brown was a guy that, again, I listened to Sports Talk and KNR and watched him, and I thought the same thing. At Penn State, he dominated. He wasn't a brash, bold guy. I thought he was going to sit over there and do his job for 15 years, and that didn't work. But those are the ones that I had on my list. Again, we could probably come up with a list of 25 over the last 25 years. But those are the ones that stung a little bit for me. And I hope that no one puts Tim Couch on this list. And again, my reason why is I still believe to this day that Tim Couch would have been a very good quarterback in the league if management would have done their jobs and protected him in a way that they should have. I thought he had all the talent and all the tools. So I'm just going to leave it at that. I'm not going to bash anymore. And I know Justin Gilbert was awful. And I know all these guys, some of these other guys, they're all, hell, if someone doesn't bring up Braylon Edwards, dear God, Braylon Edwards almost ruined a franchise. So we could go on and on and on, but K2's in prison.
Yeah, but they both had at least a good season that 1 year, 2011, whatever.
Yeah.
Season of dreams.
Yep.
Hey, I'm gonna piggy off that because I was gonna start with talking about Tim Couch and say the same exact thing, that I hate hearing his name come up as a bust because I don't even think that's fair. You can't count that. So good point there, Mace. My number 4 was Gerard Big Money Warren.
Oh yeah, big money.
He was, I think, like a number 3 pick.
Mm-hmm.
There was a bunch of hype coming in. I'll never forget. I'm working at a shoe store at Foot Locker in Strongsville when I'm in college, and he comes in and just the mystique around him. He's like, "Y'all got any 15s?" I'm like, "What would you like?" And he's like, "Just bring out all the 15s you got." I'm like, "Man, he really is big money," It was awesome. But
I think he would have partied with the Bulls back.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you guys named my other ones. My number 3 was Justin Gilbert. You're right, Keith. How could you not be good? And he wasn't. Brandon Weeden was my number 2. Again, it's weird because I'm thinking, okay, the guy, he's a little bit older. He's going to be mature. This is our guy. Let's roll with it. And obviously it didn't work out. And then my number 1 was Johnny Football. And for the same reasons that Mace said. So I don't know. It's been frustrating over the years. Who knows? Who knows what will happen next year?
Danny, what you got?
So it was interesting listening to you guys talk about Tim Couch because I very much so am in the same boat as you guys. I think it always makes me think of what Colin Cowherd always says about being drafted. Sometimes as a quarterback, if you're drafted lower in the first round, it's actually better for you because you're going to go to a better organization, is what he likes to say. I went back to 2000, like for the Steelers. And first off, it's crazy how early the Browns draft every year. Like, I know they're bad, but it's just one of those things as you're looking like, holy cow, they're in the top 6.
Pick the Steelers. Let's go.
Yeah, aren't you supposed to?
Oh, sorry. I just added to that. What's crazy is, so, like, honestly, since 2000, there are truly only like 2 guys who I don't think did anything for the Steelers to help them like either win, a playoff game or win a Super Bowl. One was Artie Burns, who I think is awful, which he's no longer there. And the other one is Jarvis Jones, who was an outside linebacker from Georgia. They drafted him in between DeCastro and Shazier. But you got guys like Santonio Holmes. Rashard Mendenhall didn't stay long, but when he was there, he was good. They got Pouncey. From 2010 to now, They have everybody on their roster except Burns and Jones. You got Pouncey, Hayward, DeCastro. Well, Shazier's not there anymore, but he would be minus being hurt. Dupree, Watt, Edmonds, and Bush. I mean, like, I think that's the difference is everybody misses. I don't think Pittsburgh misses as gigantically as the Browns. Does that make sense?
Well, I think the thing there is they have an organization and they have a plan and they know what they are. It's not like every 2 years they go from the 3-4 to the 4-3 back to the 3-4
right.
to we're going to be a spread. We're going to run power. No, we're going to run stretch zone. When you have constant turnover, it's hard to hit because, you know, those guys, what bugs me about the draft is even this year, what scares me is, you know, those guys sign those contracts and they're not thinking like a fan thinks. Like as a fan, I'm all in every year. You know, I'm like, hey, I'm all in. Let's go for it. They're going to be like, well, okay, we're going to draft this guy, but we got a couple of years to still build. You know, I'm like, let's try to win now. To me, the Steelers are always in a win now mode because they've established that. So they're not drafting guys. They can afford sometimes even draft guys for a couple years down the road because they've got a player right now who's a stopgap player and can fill in and they're still going to win. With the Browns, it's like you want to win. You know, I mean, at least I'm at the point I'm ready for them to win, and fans might be ready for them to win, but the organization might be like, well, we're not going to go all in because we're going to do something different. That's why I thought it was crazy last season for them to sign OBJ because that's an unusual Browns move because that's an all-in kind of move. When you make that move and you're going to be giving up a draft pick for this guy, that's an all-in move. I don't think the regime they have right now is necessarily going to be all in. I think they're going to use data and figure out and you know, kind of massage it, but I don't think they're all in.
That's a good point. Like, so I was thinking more so on the front office side, and I know you guys have a turnover in the front office, but like how you talked about coaching schemes, like Pittsburgh doesn't worry about that. Like, I mean, they don't worry about that because so they're drafting for the same scheme every stinking year. That's a great point.
I don't know. That's my fear. My fear and Derek and Mason, you tell me. I mean, I could be totally wrong, but I even think about Thursday night, and I think it wouldn't shock me if the Browns trade down on Thursday.
I think they will.
Yeah, I mean, I do. I think they will. I think they'll trade down, and I'm not sure what
the analytics team. I mean, and the analytics says the more picks you have, the more chance you're going to hit on somebody, and they know that they have 4 to 5 holes right now, and you know, if you have 7 shots at drafting 4 or 5 holes, you got a better chance than trying to go 4 for 4. I would be shocked if they don't trade down, and my hope is that they don't trade down too far in the first round. But that's topic for Thursday.
I think they will trade down also, just because of the fact that you look at these college linemen that I think they're going to shoot for with that first pick, and there's like 4 to 5 who are pretty much even keel as far as talent wise. That I think you don't have like a total standout stud that you're going to be shooting for. So I think they're going to get one of those guys and drop down a little bit.
But the part that I don't know that many people think about when it comes to this, and I know we're kind of taken away from maybe Thursday's talk, is, you know, yeah, I agree with you, D. Every mock draft and everything you've been looking at for the last 6 months tells you there are 4 studs and then there are about 3 or 4 other guys. But and this is what I liked you said about how the Steelers draft, Keith. I'm no football expert. I mean, all of us have kind of coached football at a small level. But there are guys that just don't fit schemes. So if Stefanski is the man, and you hope to God he is for a while, he runs a very specific type of offense. Does a 350-pound tackle fit that? I don't know that he does. And if that's the case, then he's not. Now you don't have 3 or 4 guys to choose from. You have 1 or 2 guys to choose from. And I just – you know, I think, you know, you look at running backs, you look at wide receivers, you look at all those different positions. There are guys that fit schemes and there are guys that don't. I mean, you know, Wes Welker and Danny Amendola and a lot of those types of guys. I mean, there's a reason why those guys were 6th-round picks, because most teams don't have a need for those types of players.
Right.
But I'd be curious. I would love to be able to sit in that office and to see what they believe is the best fit for their team right now. And I have a feeling it's moving back and taking a safety in the first round is my opinion.
Now it'll be interesting. I'm sorry, and this will
go ahead, Dan. Go ahead.
This may go on to another thing too. It'll be interesting to see in the next 5 years if people do what Pittsburgh did, where you see a guy who is really good, in the second year of a deal, and a team like Jacksonville who's tanking. You know what I mean? And say the Browns start 5-1 next year, and they have and one of their star corner and Denzel Ward goes down and he's out for the season, and somebody's offering up. I can't think of a corner who's good, but anyway, second or third year in the deal, do the Browns trade their first-round pick the following year for that corner? Kind of like how the Steelers did with Minkah Fitzpatrick. How much more people are going to dive into known commodities as opposed to keeping the first-round picks like they're gold.
And Danny, here's what I'm going to tell you about that trade. And this, I think he's good. Don't get me wrong. That's a great trade if you're a Browns fan. And here's my thinking on that. And I've thought about this a lot. Obviously, Big Ben only has another year or two left in him. You're going to have to bring in another quarterback. If Fitzpatrick is another guy that's when his deal is running out. You got J.J. Watt. You got all these different guys that are all going to be coming up all at the same exact time. That's my hope for when the fall of the black. Yeah.
All right. So Dan, I'm going to hit you with this real quick. So, and I know on Thursday we'll talk a lot of draft stuff, but give me a can't miss guy in this draft, Dan.
Oh, dude, I watched him for 2 years, dominate college football. It would be Chase Young.
Okay.
I mean, I should say a year and a half after. Well, Nick Bosa got hurt early, so I would say 2 years. I'd say Chase Young. I think he's 100%. Doesn't matter where he goes. He's going to be the 6-7 Pro Bowls, possibly All Pro a couple of times. Could be a Hall of Famer, I think. For me,
okay.
He's a no. To me, he's a no doubt or can't miss.
Okay, so Derek and Mason, take Chase Young out of the running. Give me a can't miss guy in this draft.
I think Joe Burrows is going to be good. I really do. I know I'm a quarterback fan, and I know it's hard to go all in on a quarterback, but he's just solid. I mean, he's got all the tools that are needed to be at worst serviceable, in my opinion. And I think he's going to have a successful career.
Mace, give me one.
Keith, those have been my first two, to be honest with you. And I agree with Derek. I love Joe Burrow. I just like a guy that his head's on straight. And but if I had to pick a third, it's going to be the kid from Alabama, the safety, the McKinney kid. And my reason is his track record. I see what Alabama safeties do in this league. And when you hear experts or even Nick Saban saying what he can do compared to some of the other guys that he's had that have went on to be in Pro Bowls, I think he's a guy that's going to play in the league for 10 years and probably make a lot of Pro Bowls and do a nice job. But I know the category isn't, biggest bust. And I don't know if that's next, Keith, but I worry about the Simmons kid. I really do. I mean, the kid from Clemson, it's very similar to the NBA to me. If you don't have a position, typically there aren't a lot of teams that can just find a spot for you to play in and plug you in. I know he's an unbelievable athlete, and I've seen what he does on a football field, but there's a big difference between college and pro. And if he's not rushing the passer or playing Mike linebacker, he's not going to be a free safety. I don't know what he is.
Do you worry about him the way, looking back, like Jabril Peppers? He was a stud athlete.
And they made that great line. What position is he? And they said football player. And I don't know, to me, guys have to fill roles, and there are roles on football teams, and I think he'd be great in a scheme. There are several teams that have, like Atlanta runs those schemes where their linebackers are 225 pounds and they fly around and try to cover tight ends and do different things like that. But I worry about him, and I have a feeling that he might drop a little bit, and the Browns might have a chance to take him, and that worries me a little bit. And I've been wrong on a lot of people, but he worries me.
I like that. No, that's a good call. That makes sense, and you're giving me reasons.
AFC North. I mean, I can't imagine him butting heads with, Ingram and Mixon and Connor, and and that's, again, here's my little dig to Steelers fan. That's why I don't know that Devin Bush is going to be around very long. I don't think he's the type of linebacker that could sit inside the box and butt heads with guys for 10 years.
Keith, I have one more I think that is a can't miss. And I know that you don't normally say this about wide receivers, but I think Jerry Jeudy's the real deal.
Kid's pretty good.
I think he is the real deal. If you watch, he is just smooth. Like, he does everything well. I don't think he does anything like, he's exceptional at, like, speed or anything like that. I just think he is really, really good at a whole bunch of different things.
Yeah. I like I said, I mean, the hard part about those guys, at least for us, because we're just casual fans and we're watching, we don't get to see the all 22 angle. It seemed like Tua would throw a slant pass and every 3 times every quarter, there was some guy who was taking it 70 yards. I mean, it was like, man, that's, but they just had studs. I mean, so all those guys seem like studs. I will be interested to see what those receivers look like, because everybody's talking about how great of a draft it is for receivers. I think that's always a tough position for you to pick and go, yeah, those guys are going to be great or they're not. It's, because in college, it seems like everybody's open by 10 yards all the time anyway. So, all right, man. All right. Hey, appreciate it, fellas. Like I said, Thursday, do some draft predictions, wishes for your team. And then we can even get into, I like what Mason brought up about Simmons. That's fantastic. And we talk more about guys who we think are going to be guys who are going to make it and guys who we think might struggle a little bit. Plus, I'm interested to hear Mason's thoughts, because he was saying he thought a lot of the experts were wrong this year. So I'll be interested to see who we think or what we think they're wrong on. So I don't know. I've looked at about 10 different mock drafts in the past 2 days, and some of the guys, you see the names in the same spot. Other guys, it's, I'm like, well, where'd they get this guy from? So it will be interesting to see what happens. All right, fellas, that's it. Have a good one. Talk to you guys. All right, man.
See you guys later. Bye.